Welcome, friends. If you have been sticking with me these past few days, thank you for doing so. I hope your Lent is being enhanced by it. If you are new, if you've just come across this video, thank you for joining us, first off. And then I would invite you to go back and check out the intro video in the first couple of days. You don't absolutely have to, but it may be helpful. And I do keep these bite-sized, right, 10 minutes. I know that you have other things going on. There's plenty out there to listen to. So I appreciate you taking a few minutes to check this out. And I again want to invite you to like, subscribe, share if you're finding this of value, and use the comments section below. I'm happy to engage you down there. If you have questions, you have comments, concerns, something you'd like to see, resource suggestions you'd like to provide or to be given, happy to do all of that. So please let me know there in the comments section. And as always, in the show notes, any resources that I have to share, I will do so down there as well, as I always try to do in whenever I'm teaching something, whether it's a semester-long class or one session or an afternoon with a group or an hour talk or whatever the case may be. One thing I always say is that I want to provide you resources. It's always good, in my experience, when I've taken classes or gone to conferences or whatever the case may be. I want some practical takeaways. I hope that's what will happen here, that even if you don't remember a whole lot of what is said here, you have some takeaways, some things you can bookmark, maybe a purchase that you are inspired to make, that sort of thing. So I want to provide those to you, and if there's anything that you need from me, please do not hesitate to make a comment and let me know. And I'm happy to provide some resources, or at least dive into it and give some recommendations. Or I have a pretty decent network of Catholic friends who, if there's something that it's not my bailiwick, that maybe they can help me out with. All right. So anyway, so we are down now here to paragraph 1324. The Eucharist, source and summit of ecclesial life. The Eucharist is the source and summit of the Christian life. The other sacraments, and indeed all ecclesiastical ministries and works of the apostolate, are bound up with the Eucharist and are oriented toward it. For in the Blessed Eucharist is contained the whole spiritual good of the Church, namely Christ himself, our Pasch. Well, let's just start at the beginning. The Eucharist is the source and summit of the Christian life. Well, if it's the source and summit of the Christian life, I guess it's pretty important, right? I guess it's pretty important. I often bring this up. You have to bring it up when you're talking about the Eucharist. If it's the source and summit of the Christian life, then how can we possibly stay away? Right? How can we possibly stay away? How is it possible that we have, I haven't looked up the statistics super recently, but, Mass attendance in Europe, I think about 5% of Catholics go to Mass on a weekly basis. In this country, I want to say it's around 25% or so, maybe a little bit more. So that's better. And but then in Africa, and I think possibly in Nigeria, where there's tremendous bloodshed going on against Christians, it's somewhere in the 85-90% category. If not Nigeria, then certainly elsewhere in Africa. It makes me wonder, is bloodshed required? Do we have to suffer for our faith before we, as a group, go back wholeheartedly? Does some disaster have to strike for us to get wholeheartedly back to church? I would hope not. But anyway, that's where we're at. But the source is some of the Christian life. Now, no wonder that, and I think, some of it, now I'm a cradle Catholic, and some of us who have been around for a while, I've mentioned this even in previous videos here, that just going up to communion, all of a sudden, I'm not thinking much about it at all. How well I'm preparing myself. When I'm even in the line for communion, what am I thinking about? Am I really focusing on what I need to? Am I really open to the graces available in the sacrament? The sacrament of Eucharist has an infinite amount of graces available for us. It's a matter of how open we are. This is why the great saints of the church have often talked about how they prepared sometimes for hours, we don't all have hours to do it, but for at least some time before Mass, right? Try to get there a little early, which is not my strong suit by any means. But I try to get there a little bit early. But even just while waiting to come out of the pew or waiting, going in line, preparing, saying a act of contrition, remembering a particular intention that you have, recognizing that Jesus is going to be inside you for a few minutes, just in a short moment. He's going to be inside of you for a few minutes, and you're never going to be closer to him than at that time. So the source and sum of the Christian life. It's no wonder that converts, and I used to do so more than I do now, but I still love listening to conversion stories, because you really see this. There's this real dynamism there. There's a real longing. There's a real enthusiasm of folks that have come into the Catholic faith. And I'll hear these stories. I just couldn't wait. I was going through the RCIA program, now the OCIA program, and just couldn't wait. I was in the pew. I was going to Mass weekly, sometimes daily, as often as I could. And I saw all these other people going up to communion, and I couldn't partake of it. I had to wait. And they're just longing for it. And then the day finally comes, and they're so enthusiastic about it. We make a big deal about First Communion. Was it yesterday? A couple of days ago, I showed you my First Communion stuff. And didn't appreciate it as a young person, I'm sure. But that enthusiasm, can I get some of that back? I'm looking at myself going, can I get some of that back? Watch some conversion stories, right? Watch some conversion stories. And, I think some of that longing, that enthusiasm comes back. And then all of a sudden, you can't wait for Mass on Sunday, and maybe more so, and maybe particularly during Lent, to try to get in there an extra day or two, maybe just even on Saturdays, and maybe then continue that beyond Lent. We want the source and sum of the Christian life. Why do we want to stay away? It's such a shame when people fall away. It seems to me that anyone who falls away from the Catholic faith, who is Catholic and then falls away, must not believe the Eucharist is what the Church says it is. Because how could you possibly stay away? And what difference does it make? I don't care for this priest's homily too much, or the music and so on. And all things that I'm happy to see improved. I'm happy to see priests give better homilies and have better music and all that stuff. But regardless of all that, that is no reason, or I don't like this person or that, or I was offended, or whatever. What is the difference? Just go to Mass and receive the Eucharist, right? And pray for those other people, right? Pray for yourself, pray for them as well. So, source and sum of the Christian life. Now, one thing I want to mention here is that you'll notice these are things that folks may skip over, just like folks skip over, like when something is parentheses they're reading, they'll skip over that. I never recommend that. But also footnotes. Do I really need the footnotes? Well, it's kind of up to you, of course. There are footnotes for a reason, but you'll notice here that the little superscript says 136. Well, if you had a hard copy of the Catechism, you would know to go to the bottom of the page, and you'll see there a reference to it. Well, same is true on the internet. Okay, I scroll to the bottom of the page and see all of these footnotes. Okay, and here happens to be 136, Lumen Gentium 11. Lumen Gentium 11. Lumen Gentium is the dogmatic constitution on the Church. Paragraph 11. It was one of the 4 constitutions of the Second Vatican Council. Very important document. All right. So let's go back up. Now, if you want to, you can find Lumen Gentium on the web, of course. But one thing that I would recommend, something that I purchased. So this book is now 30 years old, that I purchased as soon as the Catechism came out, as the companion to the Catechism. And what's so neat about this, and you see it's even thicker than the Catechism. What's neat about this is that all those references are actually fully spelled out in this book. So you don't have to look them up anywhere else except here. The book is not, I cannot find it on the internet anywhere. So the full text is not available. You have to purchase it. I will certainly provide a link to that for you. But I would encourage you to pick one up if you're seriously, if you're really getting into study the Catechism. This would be very helpful to you. Let me just drop down to the 1326. Finally, by the Eucharistic celebration, we already unite ourselves with the heavenly liturgy and anticipate eternal life. The book I'm going to recommend, The Lamb's Supper, very popular book by Scott Hahn. I'm sure one of his bestsellers. where he looks at the book of Revelation, looks at the Mass, sees the connections. They're very easy to see once you read Revelation and read his book, and you'll see that we are really involved in the heavenly liturgy. We're saying prayers that the angels are saying constantly before the throne of God. I'll leave a link, check it out, and I will look forward to seeing you tomorrow.